Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Aaron Porras, and coming up in today's newscast, Israeli health officials are forced to toss out 10,000 Chinese coronavirus tests. New reports show the coronavirus splitting off into at least 30 different dangerous mutations, and the Israeli government releases official guidelines for observing Memorial and Independence Day next week. As of this morning, the coronavirus in Israel has killed over 190 patients, and it's infected roughly 14,600 more, with at least 136 in serious condition. Additionally, Israeli health officials are conducting more tests than ever before, having administered 13,342 tests on April 20th alone, the highest number of tests in any single day by far. But many are now questioning the trustworthiness of these numbers. An 86-year-old Israeli who had been infected with COVID-19 later tested negative for the virus and was released back to his nursing home last week. But he's now readmitted with the virus again in critical condition. That being said, it's unclear whether the man was reinfected or tested false negative earlier in the week. What is clear is that Israel has a testing issue at hand. Claims of the virus eluding detection and yielding false results have been reported all around the world, and health officials in Israel say that more than once faulty testing kits have been discovered. Then now, to make matters worse, Israeli Magen David Adom paramedics say that upwards of 10,000 tests taken over the past few days may need to be retaken too. The tests come from a Chinese purchase and on Wednesday had been ordered to be thrown out due to concerns that they're defective. Apparently, there's an issue with the liquid in the tests being of an off color, and the health ministry has already ordered test kit administrators to switch over to product brands that they know are effective. It's unclear, however, whether or not the different colored liquid actually impacted the results. Still, just to be on the safe side, the health ministry is tossing them out. Now, as part of the fight against this global pandemic, researchers have been desperately trying to simply catalog how the virus works. But constant reports of potentially new symptoms have made this a very difficult task. And now we may know why. Apparently, the novel coronavirus has likely mutated into at least 30 different variations. COVID-19, the novel coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, it goes by many names, but maybe it needs a few more because according to a newly released study, it's mutating rapidly, and medical officials are still vastly underestimating it. The study was conducted by Chinese professor Li Lanzhuan from Zhejiang University in Hangzhou, and it's yet to be peer-reviewed. But in testing 11 randomly selected patients, over 30 mutations had been detected, 19 of which were totally new. And this variation is already being expressed in the symptoms of carriers, too. In some patients, typically children, purple and blue lesions on the feet, dubbed COVID toes, are now appearing. In China, there are new reports that the virus may live longer in the eyes than in other places, and that nasal swabs may test negative while eye swabs test positive. And in New York, an odd blood clotting issue has reared its ugly head, leading to a sharp increase in strokes amongst COVID patients.
We're still learning so much about COVID. We don't absolutely understand everything by far. Whether or not the clotting is a symptom of something fundamentally going wrong with the lining of the blood vessel, or whether the clotting is the primary thing, it's without doubt causing a lot of the problems we're seeing. We've even seen young patients who've shown up at the hospital where having a stroke was their first presenting symptom of having the COVID-19 disease. So it's certainly broad and profound.
So Li's team is now urgently advising health officials around the world to take region-specific mutations and variations into account when deciding on treatments and researching cures. Otherwise, he says we're likely to hit major pitfalls. In related news, we are now finishing off the first week since coronavirus restrictions in Israel have eased, but in spite of government praise over the general public's response, Israelis might be taking a little too much advantage of their returned freedoms. For a whole week now, Israeli patient recoveries have outnumbered patient infections, and so the government has opened up many businesses and is allowing a little bit more freedom to leave the house. But already these freedoms have been slightly abused. Police have been forced to break up crowds in public parks, and upwards of 75% of the normal volume of traffic has hit the streets, in spite of only 30% of the workforce being allowed to return. Then parking and inner-city traffic has seen a massive spike too. And huge groups of citizens are flocking to stores like IKEA as well, now that they've opened, in complete opposition to social distancing orders still on the books. Well, footage of these big crowds has sparked debate in the government over how wise the openings have been. And senior health officials with the health ministry explained that the first wave of the virus may be behind us, but that at this rate, a second wave is inevitable. Speaking with Ynet, the health ministry's deputy director general Itamar Grato says that while 200 new patients a day is less than before, it's still more than anything we saw at the beginning, and it could carry significant outbreak potential. But even so, under pressures of the threat of economic collapse, the government is actually weighing additional easing of restrictions, and sooner than predicted. Originally, Prime Minister Netanyahu said that the restrictions would be reviewed on 2-week intervals. It's only been 5 days. Now, thousands of businesses deemed non-essential, like tourism companies, restaurants, and fashion designers, are still closed due to the coronavirus, and many don't make the cut for government assistance either. So what do these companies do? Well, joining us on Skype now is Elinoy Kislov, founder and owner of Graffitiul Tours and Workshops, a company that unfortunately has had to close amidst the coronavirus crisis. Now, first of all, thank you so much for being with us. Your business has been operating for 7 years and it employs about 20 people. How long have you been closed because of the coronavirus?
At least a month, maybe a month and a half.
Wow. And what are you doing in that time? How are you dealing with that?
So at the beginning, I was very optimistic and I started organizing things, but now I understand that the situation is not getting better and it's going to take a long time for tourism to get back. So I actually started a virtual tour and hoping to find my way to make my business survive.
So actually, that was my next question. I understand that you found a very creative solution to continue your business operations to some degree, this virtual tour. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so the idea is that people can join and can go through Google Earth with us and find some really unique places and hear the best stories, at least in my opinion, and get some inspiration of what graffiti artists, for example, did when they were on a crisis and how they managed. And hopefully to give inspiration for people today in this situation to find ways to be more creative.
Now, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance announced assistance for businesses and discounts as well, allowances, grants. Are you receiving any such assistance?
No, not at all. Apparently, people who own companies don't deserve anything. And also, I realize if I'm going to look for someone to help me, I'm probably not going to survive. So I realized I have to help myself.
Wow. So how many employees do you still have now that you've gone virtual?
To be honest, I had to let everyone go.
Wow.
I cannot afford to have anyone now.
Wow, that's terrible. Are you still offering the full amount of tours at least, or anything close to that? I mean, what kind of tours are you still running? Just graffiti tours?
So now I'm running only the virtual tour. There's no one to join on a regular tour. And from a business that we had 150 tours a month, we have 0 right for today. So hopefully now when we have something virtual, maybe now we're gonna maybe get to some business.
Wow. All right. Well, thank you so much, and I wish you good luck in the future with your tour company. I hope you bounce back. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Now for some good news, it looks like international efforts to find a vaccine for the coronavirus are advancing into human trials. Israeli researchers have now secured $12 million to get their coronavirus vaccine into human trials by the summer. The scientists work for the company MigVax, an affiliate of the Migal Galilee Research Institute, which in March successfully developed a vaccine for coronavirus affecting poultry. And Migal has already been working for 4 years on another coronavirus strain that causes infectious bronchitis. But MigVax will now begin experimenting on rodents in as soon as May, with plans to start 6-month human trials by the summer of 2020. Then, at the same time, an Israeli scientist from Tel Aviv University has now been awarded a U.S. patent on his vaccine design. It reportedly targets the virus's RBM, which enables the virus to bind to and infect a target cell. Meanwhile, elsewhere around the world, at least 5 other clinical human trials are already underway. And in Germany and in the UK, where trials have just begun, expectations are high.
Und ich kann Ihnen ankündigen, dass wir in Kürze auch in Deutschland den Beginn einer ersten klinischen Prüfung haben werden. Und ich bin sicher, dass wir auch im Laufe des Jahres noch weitere klinische Prüfungen haben werden in Deutschland. Und da handelt es sich ebenfalls um 2 RNA- und 2 Vektorimpfstoffe, die entsprechend im Verfahren laufen.
In the long run, the best way to defeat coronavirus is through a vaccine. After all, this is a new disease. This is uncertain science, but I'm certain that we will throw everything we've got at developing a vaccine. The UK is at the forefront of the global effort. We've put more money than any other country into the global search for a vaccine. And for all the efforts around the world, 2 of the leading vaccine developments taking place here at home at Oxford and Imperial. Both of these promising projects are making rapid progress, and I've told the scientists leading them that we'll do everything in our power to support.
Still, regardless of who's leading the race, health experts insist that the solution is months away or longer, and that a solution to the pandemic will not come from any one place, but rather it will be an international effort. In an unprecedented decision, the Labour Party in Israel has now officially approved of entering the Unity Coalition, including Prime Minister Netanyahu. And regarding the 180 from earlier promises, Labour Party Chairman Amir Peretz explained simply that he wants Labour to return to the center of public service. But what about the Yamina Party, and on what policies does this smattering of parties in the coalition agree? Well, it's been 2 days since the signing of Israel's second ever unity government, and Prime Minister Netanyahu is hard at work trying to build the numbers in the coalition. But after meeting with Education Minister and Yamina Party Chairman Naftali Bennett, it's still unclear if the right-wing party will join up or stay in the opposition. A source with the Yamina Party, however, says that the meeting ended positively and that Bennett and Netanyahu have agreed to speak again soon. As for policy issues within the current coalition, one involves conflict over Netanyahu's ability to lead while in trial for corruption, and his trial is now set to begin May 24th. But officials from both sides of the new government have insisted that no attempts to undermine the courts will be made. The second biggest issue, though, lies with annexations in Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank. Support for annexations, as outlined in the American Middle East Peace Plan, is shared across more than enough parties in the Knesset. And under the terms of the unity agreement, the Likud can push annexations for a vote in as soon as 3 months from now. PA officials like President Abbas, however, threatened to drop agreements with Israel and with the U.S. if annexations go through. And he claims that annexations would lead to the death of any negotiated settlement. Similarly, United States Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says that now would not be an ideal time for such a move.
The Israelis will ultimately make those decisions. That's an Israeli decision. And we will work closely with them to share with them our views of this in a private setting.
All right, now Prime Minister Netanyahu and Speaker Benny Gantz have signed a unity agreement, but the deadline to actually establish the unity government is running out. So Likud and blue and white delegates have begun to pass laws to advance the process. But can they succeed in time? Joining us to discuss is Mark Schulman, columnist for Newsweek and editor of HistoryCentral.com. Mark, thanks for being with us. Now, what needs to happen for this new unity to be approved?
Well, there are a series of laws that have to be passed because basic laws have to be changed, which means they need 61 votes in the parliament, which theoretically they have. Of course, they have to have 61 people physically present, and of course, some members of Knesset are in actually quarantine, so it'll be a little bit more difficult. But the other issue that makes this complicated is that various cases have been brought before the Supreme Court to stop these laws from being passed, saying they violate the general constitution before they're even passed, as well as the actual agreement between the two parties. Now, people have been requested to give answers to the Supreme Court by Sunday, and then it's not clear when the Supreme Court will rule, but all of this will put a wrench in the timetable to get all of these things done. Keep in mind that in 2.5 weeks, automatically the Knesset disperses and there can't be a government and we go for new elections. All these things have to be done in a relatively short period of time.
All right, now, moving a little bit onto some of the negotiations, Prime Minister Netanyahu met with Yamina leader Naftali Bennett on Wednesday to discuss Yamina's role in the coming government. Do you think Yamina will join or stay in the opposition?
Look, they want to be in the government because they know only in the government can they do anything to join the opposition of Lapid, Lieberman, the joint list, to be kind of a strange opposition. Nothing sort of unites them all.
So,
on the other hand, look,
politically, it's a better move to be within the government then?
Probably. I say probably because it's unclear, really, from their perspective. On the other hand, from inside the government, they could disappear, and they need to sort of reinvent themselves, I think, to get any traction next time. The other factor to keep in mind is Naftali Bennett and and Netanyahu really do not like each other. Let's put it that way. Let's put it mildly. And the reality, look, today the most absurd thing is taking place, which is a long list of absurd things that have taken place here. Bennett comes out with his own plan for getting the country moving again. Now, it's one thing in the United States when you have governors and presidents who disagree, or the Congress, which are independent branches of government. But this is the government, and we have different people from the government coming forth with their own plans, arguing it in public, getting on television. And of course, this is no way to run a railroad, and Bennett likes doing that, particularly to sort of anger Netanyahu, let's put it that way.
All right. Now, speaking of the coronavirus, MK Ofer Shelach, the chairman of the new coronavirus committee, has actually been criticizing decision makers for the way that regulations and restrictions have been rolled out. Would you agree with his criticisms?
Yes, generally there's no question. Look, the country was very, very good at saying no. No more flights, cutting off from this country, that country. But it comes beyond that, even all the things, the closing the stores and closing everything, but moving beyond that for a strategy for how we're reopening, why we're reopening, why last week Netanyahu said it'll be very, very slowly, and now because of political pressure, suddenly tomorrow they're opening up a whole, all the rest of the stores. Why? Did it get any better in terms of testing? No. Did it get any better in terms of our ability to trace cases? No. Have we had less cases? No. But the pressure mounted. And there's the problem that this country, it's very easy, pressure mounts. And look, people are really getting tired of this. The government has not stepped in economically. In terms of small businesses, they've received absolutely nothing to date. And they're talking about a rollout the next day or two of the plan. But by all accounts, once the plan is rolled out, it'll take a month, maybe 2 months until anyone sees any money. And so you have businesses that have been without income for 6 weeks, 8 weeks. They can't keep on going at this rate, and they're screaming bloody murder. Now, of course, the problem is that even if you reopen, are you going to get customers? I mean, IKEA did, I guess, yesterday, which was interesting. But I don't know, are you going to go to a bar shop because it opened? Are you going to be willing to be the 12th person that one person sees every day and assume you're not going to get the coronavirus by being taken care of by the barber? I mean, I can go through a whole list of such things.
Well, personally, I can say no, but I'm sure a lot of people might. It'll be really interesting to see what the response to the regulations, whatever they are, is. Thank you so much, Mark.
Look, my pleasure.
Moving on, Israel's Memorial and Independence Days are now less than a week away, but as you might expect, the coronavirus has changed a few things. So here's ILTV's Nittany Manson on how to observe the traditions this year.
Israeli Memorial Day and 72nd Independence Day are coming up fast, April 27th and 28th respectively. But amidst the pandemic, most of the typical traditions for both the saddest and happiest days in Israel's calendar are a no-go. So here's what you can do, according to the government's new emergency regulations. First, on Memorial Day, people typically head to the cemeteries to visit the graves of fallen IDF soldiers, victims of terror, and to other memorial sites. Also, a Memorial Day celebration will be virtually held. People will only be allowed to visit graves between now and Memorial Day's Eve. A lockdown similar to that of the Passover holiday will then go into effect around 4 p.m. that day. As for Independence Day, the usual parties and massive events have all been canceled or moved online as well, and people will only be permitted to leave their homes for essential services. Public transportation and even buying food will be banned during that national holiday. There are still plenty of digital celebrations to choose from, though, and the government is running 2 of them. One hosted on Facebook by the IDF on April 28th, and the other hosted by the Israeli Embassy online and scheduled for May 14th, or Israeli Independence Day on the Western calendar.
So if you're addicted to social media, you should stay tuned for this next item, because quietly and under the radar, a group of Israeli mothers have now become the funniest secret on Facebook. And why? Well, it's because they laugh at everything from their children and their husbands to even death. But now the group is called Mamatzchik, and it has more than 500,000 participants. And here to tell us all about it is the group founder, Keren Alaluf Sharabi. Keren, it's so great to have you with us today. Now, your group laughs at every topic, even hard or embarrassing things. But how do you think about the idea of opening a closed group for women?
Well, there was nothing like it on Facebook. And me and my partner, we used to write posts on women group, and we get all kinds of comments which were criticizing and judgmental, because women like to judgment one another. So we wanted to have a clean platform that everyone can write funny posts about everything they want, and no one can judgment their laugh or their humor in the comments. So this is Mamatzik. This is it.
All right,
Clean.
now the group it makes men who want to join and can't envious. And even President Rivlin has written a special post for women in the group. But why is there no entry for any men whatsoever?
We don't want men in our group. We want only women. This is our clean place to speak about men and to complain in a funny way about a husband, boyfriend, mother-in-law. There are so many topics and about intimate things that women share with women. And when we have men in the group, all of the dynamic is different. They have their own groups. So we are almost 500,000 women alone, women from everywhere in Israel and overseas, in the States too.
So what are some of the most special or funny reactions that you've received in the group?
Special, many reactions are very special and mainly emotional and exciting, although this is a funny group, because the funny thing about it, when you hear how people get from the post such great power, because we had, for example, one woman which told us in a post that she and her mother in the later stage of cancer used to go all the time into the group and read funny posts and laugh together. This was their last moments together, laughing. And the group gave this woman and her mother a lot of strength. There was another mother from the group which told us in a post, very emotional post, that she went to her son's grave and she told him about Mamatzik. She showed him our group sticker. We have a group sticker. And she said that this was the hardest year in her life. But every time she felt she's going deeper and deeper down and depressed, she got in the group and she got a good dose of laughter. This is very healing for every woman because they can write everything they want and say it in a funny note, and no one will say to you, this is wrong, how can you write it? So a lot of emotional and funny reactions to the group all the time.
All right, well, Karen, it's a beautiful message, and thank you so much for joining with us. This group sounds hilarious. I'm sad I can't join it, but it's probably for the best. Thank you again.
But you can look we have a public page, and then you can speak and look what we post there.
Perfect, I'll be there. Thank you so much, Karen.
Bye-bye.
Now, speaking of things to do online, there's an amazing new trend developing around the world as more and more people get stuck in home quarantine. Virtual tourism. And Israel has already released some awesome resources, so you can see the gorgeous Holy Land without ever having to leave your house. A number of beautiful videos, photos, and digital tours are now making their way to the internet so that people at home can still come to the Holy Land without coming to the Holy Land. And the Israeli Ministry of Tourism started the initiative with requests for the public to join in. But the results have already exceeded expectations. Hashtag Inspired by Israel, hashtag Stay Home, and hashtag Visit Israel are 3 tags now trending across the net as people all over the world share their experiences in Israel on social media. So if you've never been to Israel, now is the best time to get a sneak peek. And if you have, then make sure to join in on the fun and share your experiences online. All right, now let's take a look at the weather forecast. The weekend is here and things are expected to cool down. Tonight will be clear to partly cloudy and cool with average lows around 58 or 14 degrees Celsius. Then you can expect partly cloudy skies on Friday and rain on Saturday with highs of roughly 75 or 24 degrees Celsius. And now before we go, let's take a look at what's going viral in Israel.
משהו ככה, ואנחנו שם הולכים עם שמש בכיסים ומעל גגות הכוכבים, והזמן עובר בלי פחד ואני הולך לפגוש אותה בגן העדן. תתארו לכם קצת אושר כי הוא כל כך נדיר כאן.
All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.54 shekels to the American dollar. For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube and Roku TV pages. I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you so much for watching.